of essential services. The UNDP estimates that the debris is equivalent to approximately 480,000 standard truckloads, consisting of 2.1 million tons of building and construction debris, 1.3 million tons of vegetation waste, 1.4 million tons of personal property and mixed household debris. These are minimum estimates and will increase as ground assessment continues. Compared to major hurricanes worldwide, Hurricane Melissa now ranks amongst the most extreme debris generating storms ever on record. And there are analyses that are already being done on this, Mr. Speaker, which would compare, for example, the debris generated in Hurricane Katrina, the debris generated in Hurricane Irma, and other hurricanes relative to Jamaica. And of course, there are suggestions regarding the type of building material used, where people chose to live. But there is also another factor which we have not yet assessed, but needs to be assessed. The damage went through the cockpit country. And therefore, some of our prime forests were destroyed. The leaves of every tree in the path was stripped and the trees broken. So the devastation of the primary forest has not yet been assessed. So when the satellites are doing the imagery, what they are picking up is a lot of that debris mass, which accounts for why it is so large. In the other areas, the storms did not affect primary forests as the way it has. 51%, I'm told, of our primary forests has been affected. So in other hurricanes in other countries, it has not affected their forests in the way that it has affected ours, our cockpit country. So it's an area that we will have to look at, but it's not the primary subject of today's statement. Mr. Speaker, we must act urgently and strategically to address this unprecedented challenge. It is important to note that at this time of the year, we traditionally launch our annual mitigation and cleanup exercise, constituency-based, in preparation for the Christmas season. Today, I wish to inform this Honorable House that the government has approved budgetary allocations for the National Cleanup Program, which will incorporate the annual constituency-based mitigation and cleanup program. $10 million per constituency has been allocated under the National Constituency-based mitigation program. The allocation will be broken down as follows: $2 million for drain and waterway cleaning and vector control to reduce the spread of pests and disease, $5 million for de-embushing, and $3 million for debris and waste removal. This investment is not only routine seasonal maintenance, it will neatly dovetail into a broader program of cleaning and debris management. Additional funding will be provided to the 16 most affected constituencies across Westmoreland, 3 constituencies, Hanover, 2 constituencies, St. James, 5 constituencies, Trelawney, 2 constituencies, and St. Elizabeth, 4 constituencies. Beyond these parishes, other severely affected communities island-wide will also be targeted. So there is a constituency-based, parish-based targeting, but then we will go more granular to specific communities in other parishes which have been affected. Mr. Speaker, we believe that this is the most equitable and efficient way of using the resources. In other words, we are targeting the resources to the areas of greatest need. This program will employ, just to be clear, Mr. Speaker, this is the program which is our national cleanup program, which represents the additional funding that we are placing on the table. So this program will employ between 100 and 200 persons per constituency. So in the 16 constituencies named, in addition to areas in other constituencies affected, we will employ between 100 to 200 persons to assist with the cleanup. The Social Development Commission will oversee the recruitment, training, and organization of work teams. Our aim is to ensure that all workers are properly documented, are supported to open a bank account where needed, and receive basic training in the safe handling and disposal of debris and waste. This is part of a wider effort to formalize labor, strengthen social protection, and uphold decent work principles even during an emergency. The National Solid Waste Management Authority will coordinate operational planning and work schedules. They will be supported by the Jamaica Defense Force, the National Spatial Data Unit, utilizing GIS mapping to tag and track debris, the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, and the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. We are identifying additional temporary disposal sites and exploring recycling and the circular economy solutions, which will include using wood chippers to process vegetative waste and mulch, to process vegetative waste for mulch and compost, establishing structured scrap metal recovery, and recovering reusable construction material, and partnering with private firms to pilot community-level material sorting. These measures are essential to build long-term resilience in waste and debris management. We have also begun securing additional trucks, compactors, bulldozers, and heavy equipment, including through pledged international support. Mr. Speaker, countries that have faced large-scale disasters such as Japan after the 2011 earthquake, Indonesia after the 2018 earthquake, and the United States after Hurricane Katrina implemented debris-to-income programs where communities were paid to sort, recycle, dispose, and remove, and to convert debris into usable materials. These programs created temporary jobs, accelerated cleanup, reduced landfill pressure, and strengthened local recycling industries. And Jamaica will follow similar best practices and models, ensuring that our cleanup effort also supports livelihoods and stimulate local enterprise. Mr. Speaker, I should also point out that we are making a special allocation of $150 million. You know what, let me not make that statement, no, having said what I just said earlier. No, the Minister of Finance slipped me a note, and I misread the note. In addition to the allocations for MPs, for constituencies, we're also making an allocation of $150,000 per councillor in each constituency. I hope, Mr. Speaker, that Hansa did not record my initial statement. I'll come to that later on. I can't go back. Mr. Speaker, while the government is providing resources, equipment, and coordination, the national cleanup effort cannot succeed without the full participation of our citizens. Every Jamaican, schools, businesses, community groups, church groups, service clubs, and private households must join in this campaign to clean up our space. A cleaner Jamaica is not only aesthetically pleasing, it is safer, healthier, more resilient, and more attractive for investment and tourism. The cleanup we begin today contributes directly to our economic recovery, our public health, and our national pride. Given the scale of the debris, this will take time. Initial operations are projected for 2 to 4 fortnights, after which we will conduct an assessment and expand interventions as required. So technically, we could go under the special national cleanup program for a month to 2 months, just to do cleanup. After that, then we will reassess. Members of Parliament and councillors in targeted areas will receive detailed instructions and guidelines. Letters confirming allocations, that is under your normal routine maintenance Christmas program. You will get those letters by Friday. And for the constituencies that are
Mr. Speaker, as the time for speaking has expired, we ask that the time be extended sufficiently to complete the presentation.
Minister, you have the liberty. PM, you have the liberty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mike, your mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm finished.
The question is on the floor for the extension of time. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. You may continue, PM.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm actually at the end. So, members of Parliament and councillors in targeted areas will receive detailed instructions and guidelines. So, letters confirming the allocations will be sent out by the latest Friday of this week. You will probably get them late tomorrow into early Thursday. And for the constituencies that are specifically targeted, those 16 in addition to areas in other constituencies, you will also get your letters explaining how you will participate in the program, how you will be able to recommend persons to work, the assignment of the SDC officers, all those details that will ensure that you are effective in the mobilization towards our national cleanup. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members, for your attention.
Thank you, Prime Minister. So the normal allocation for road patching that we would normally get, are we to understand that that's not going to be provided this time around, or that you're treating the payments? Yeah, however you feel comfortable. So is it that the payments that we receive for Melissa relief and for the emergency drain cleaning just before, and the housing allocation, is that kind of in lieu of the road patching resources that we would normally expect at this time to fix up roads? Many of us do that in January after the Christmas rush, because it's quite difficult to administer so many programs at the same time in December. But I'm wondering about that because the roads, there's been a lot of rain, so the roads are in need of patching in the constituencies. So what is going to happen there? In terms of the national cleanup program, the role of the MPs will be what exactly in that? Because you've said that you're going to employ 100 to 200 per constituency in the areas where the cleanup is being done, which are the most badly affected areas. And the SDC is going to handle the engagement and training, you said, of those workers. So do the members of Parliament have any role in that at all? And if so, what is that role? Those are my questions.
Thank you, Leader of the Opposition. Let me start with the role of the MPs. I want it to be clearly understood, Mr. Speaker, that the MPs are integral and critical to the relief and recovery process, and there is no attempt in any way to marginalize or to obviate the office of the Member of Parliament. And in every program that we have designed, the office of the Member of Parliament is integrated and connected and contacted. And I want that to be established for the records. We must, however, appreciate, Mr. Speaker, that unwittingly, or maybe by design, we are every day changing the role of the Member of Parliament. The Member of Parliament is becoming less of a legislator and more of a standing office for social work, contracting, construction management. Madam Speaker, this collective body has to be very careful as to how it expands its role beyond its constitutional jurisdiction. And I'm always very sensitive to it, in as much as I am a member of Parliament, and I say to all, especially the new members of Parliament, I do understand how you feel when you get out into the field and your constituents say, I need help. And if you were to say to them that my role is to go to Parliament and talk, or my role is to go to Parliament or to write a letter to, they're not going to understand that. They're not going to see the value of that. What they want to see is for you to be present with them in the rain, in the storm, as you were when you were seeking their vote. It is the nature of politics. It's not just Jamaica, it's everywhere. But as leaders, we have to be careful how we succumb to certain pressures that change the nature of our government, including how it lessens accountability and transparency. So I'm very sensitive to that. Absolutely. So it's not my intention to use the disaster response to change the nature of the office and function of the Member of Parliament. And I will say this in response, Leader of the Opposition. When we gave, when we made the allocation of $10 million to MPs, there were certain arguments being put. $10 million, this can't do anything. $10 million, and we agree, $10 million is absolutely insignificant to the overall picture. But note what MPs have said. We need more money for transporting the $10 million worth of goods, not to take it out of the $10 million, but we put money on top of that for transportation. Then some members of Parliament have said, we need funds to actually go and inspect the damage so that we can send back the picture. Then some members of Parliament have said, you know, we need staff to manage all of this. In other words, in other words, I appreciate, and I'm not saying that I don't understand the demands. I too am a member of Parliament. But the office was never designed in the first place to do this. And so either we are going to unwittingly allow it to happen, or if it is the collective mind that it be so, then we will have to sit down and properly provision the office of the Member of Parliament to become a department of the government that delivers service in the constituencies. So it is a reality. So I'm not meaning to open this as a debate, but I'm just pointing out. I'm just pointing out that these are things that, as the people who lead the country, we have to sometimes look above what the public is saying and what everybody else is saying and see what our collective action is doing. Are we leading or are we being led? Now, I mean, it is a debate to be had, Leader of the Opposition. It's a debate to be had, but I wouldn't... For this cleanup program, yes, that's what I'm coming to. So in this cleanup program, as in any other, we expect that the Member of Parliament will play a critical role in, one, recommending the persons who will be employed. Absolutely important. So you will be working along with your SDC officers. Number two, that you will be playing a role in identifying equipment that can be used in the cleanup. The NSWMA will be the coordinating body for the trucks and the tractors and the excavators and the power saws and all of those things. So the NSWMA may not know all the equipment that exists within your constituency or in your community. So you will coordinate with them. But just to be clear, MPs are not to get involved in any contracting or procurement matters. I think I have to say this and say it publicly and say it repeatedly. It is not your role. MPs can play a pivotal role in mobilizing the community. Now, when any program is announced with resources, as MPs we know that the first thing that people see or ask is the money and how much you're going to get. But this is a national cleanup program where, though there is a component of pay, there is also a component of service. It is in all our interests to remove the debris from the communities. Let's be clear. There will be persons in communities who are not able themselves to remove the debris. Old persons, infirm persons. And therefore, as you organize the labor force, as members of parliament, you will have great knowledge of your communities as to where the help will be needed. So you can help to guide how the various work teams are directed, where they should go and how they should be deployed. So the members of parliament have a critical role to play, but I'm going to urge you to stay within the bounds of what you are constitutionally required to do. Now, the other question was the road patching. Mr. Speaker, we will not be able to do the road patching as we have done in the previous mitigation program because of one, the resource constraint, and number two, we would not want the NWA's resources to be tied up in treating with the procurement and contracting in other areas where the need is not as great as the 16 constituencies and some other targeted areas. So we have taken the decision to focus the efforts right now on getting those 16 areas back up and running. It doesn't mean that there will not be an allocation. It just means that you won't have the allocation now while this program is going on. Because the NWA will play a critical role in this national cleanup as well. Because remember now, most of the debris would be along their corridor, the NWA corridors and the parish council corridors. And we will need the NWA to help us with management and supervision of the various work teams, and to help us in the reporting of the removal of the debris. Because at some point in time, there will be accountability, there will be monitoring and evaluation. You might hear that, you know, we move 20,000 truckloads of debris, and then, you know, for some reason you can't account for 4,000 or 5,000. We don't want that. We want to be able to account for everything. So we're going to ask the NWA to help us with just managing how accounting for the removal of the waste, tracking, and helping us to understand in particular areas. For example, there might be light poles, some debris might block gullies, it might block culverts. So we want the NWA to be there to assist the work teams in proper guidance and direction to make sure that everything is done according to what proper civil works codes should be. I believe you had a third question, Leader of the Opposition. That was it? Good.
Member from St. Catherine North Central.
Prime Minister, I am still, over these years, questioning how it is determined that the hilly terrain of North Central St. Catherine and East Central St. Andrew could possibly get the same funding for bushing when this amount, by NWA rates and standard, would only do about 3 of my main thoroughfares. So I'm not picking on you, but my colleagues as well. Why would I get up in North Central St. Catherine, where the vegetation is so overgrown? I don't know how I could be compared to East Kingston and Port Royal. So I'm not picking on you. Benassi dog. I am batting for rural constituencies at this time. The bush are closing upon the cars. The people have nowhere to walk. Down in St. Andrew, is it northeast where Chuck is? Yes, northeast. I think maybe you would probably beautify the curb walls, yes. But we have bush, the vegetation that cars can't pass without crying up the side of the vehicles and with people not having anywhere to walk. There is no routine maintenance going on, so let's not fool ourselves. The bushing only takes place once per year. And when that happens, it is at a place where it is not manageable. We have to be using equipment to first clear the sides of the road before we can even send men out there to attempt to bush. Prime Minister, I'm appealing to you. Rural constituencies must be treated differently at this time to be able to take care of overgrown vegetation. My second question relates to the movement of funding. I think we have always been able to, based on what our needs are, that we might be able to do some juggling where possible. Please just elaborate.
Thank you. Because we are
Prime Minister, just a minute. Yeah, you go ahead now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for those statements and the question. Because we had cut the program to dovetail it into the national cleanup program, we didn't make the usual parametric provisions where you could make certain changes. But as the program is defined now, I will inform my permanent secretary that I have no objections if a member of parliament were to decide to shift from bulky waste into bushing or from bushing into bulky waste. But there can be no compromise on the $2 million for cleaning drains and waterways, because if you note, it is more for vector control. So you can use this for vector control if you would like. But the threat now is mostly for standing water, where you are having rats and other vectors, mosquitoes. So if we would not allow you not to use that $2 million for that purpose, but you can move between bushing and bulky waste removal. On the matter of the rural constituency, it is a constant point being made in these debates, and more as it is made, I'm inclined to consider it. Not as an additional allocation, but as we have, for example, which we debated last week or the week before, with the bauxite levy fund for constituency development. Constituencies, they get a special allocation from that. So there may be ways to craft programs that are specific to rural constituencies for which you would qualify as one, rather than to make a general allocation.
Member from St. Anne Southeastern, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Prime Minister. Just to echo, Southeast St. Anne is the largest, geographically, the largest constituency in the country. And so the issues related to, yeah man, that's true man, you check your thing. The issue of ensuring that we're able to service and deal with the issues with roads, bushing, etc. is critical, and I want to echo what the member said. And thank you for your commitment to considering it. The other consideration which I would like to ask if you would make, Prime Minister, is some flexibility. You said there will be funds coming regarding patching. And so I wonder if you would consider now allowing some of us to be able to access those patching resources earlier than others. And I say this because the roads in my constituency are downright dangerous, and they've been made more so by the hurricane and the waters from the hurricane. But in addition, we have some breakaways, which might be a separate issue, but certainly road-related, breakaways from slippages that need urgent attention. So 2 parts to the question. The first is flexibility with the patching resources. Those of us who, in consultation with the NAA, can access and use those resources effectively in the short term, if we can have that flexibility. And secondly, the plans for dealing with the breakaways from the hurricane in constituencies like mine.
Thank you, member, and thank you again, Mr. Speaker. I see that the road patching and road maintenance are matters of concern, particularly for the MPs that are not within the 16. Let me assure the entire Parliament, the NAA presented to the Cabinet a budget for recovery of roads for $35 billion. We were not able to allocate $35 billion all at once. We settled on an allocation of $5 billion. That's what we could see our way to fiscally. And in that $5 billion would be allocations for patching up roads, minor and major repairs. I'm not sure if we did anything for
Prime Minister, please. It is now 7:20. House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the time being 7:20, I ask that the House be allowed to sit beyond 7:30 to complete the business of the day.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. Prime Minister, you may continue.
We could see our way fiscally, and members, allow me to just engage you for a few minutes. Please bear in mind that revenues have fallen, expenditures by virtue of what we need for relief and recovery. You would have heard the Minister of Energy explain the demands on the government, even things that we did not budget for, we have to now put them in place. So it's a delicate balancing act to ensure that we don't end up in a financial crisis as we are responding. So every demand that is made, we put it through the lens of what is fiscally possible. Now, what is fiscally possible is also determined by how efficiently you spend the resources allocated. We can make allocations that are not efficiently used. So we have to look at what is the spending capacity of the entities that we are giving the resources to. So when it comes to road patching, for example, if we were to say, fix all the roads, say we're going to fix all the roads in all the constituencies, and then in addition to that, spend more resources on the 16, you know what the biggest problem was? The member, my sister from St. Andrews Southwest, who stood up in Parliament last year and complained that you have allocated, what was it, $40 million, but I can't get anything done. And why could you get that $40 billion spent? Because it had to go through procurement and then contracting and all kind of long process, tying up the NAA staff. Note, we haven't made a budget to increase the staff of the NAA. We haven't taken on more people, it's the same staff. So even if we're making allocations, we also have to think about how the allocations are going to be spent. So these are just some of the considerations. So what we have done is to look at the entirety of the roads that need to be repaired, give priority to those that are in the worst damaged areas, which I think we all agree that that's the sacrifice we have to make. But at the same time, As soon as we have gotten those roads underway, then we can look at the others. So we're going to treat all the roads in Jamaica under the emergency procurement because they were all affected. But the emphasis, because of the resources that we have, will be on the roads that are in the most affected areas, and then we will come back and deal with the other roads. So we have allocated $1.5 billion for patching. Note that last year, when we were impacted by the heavy rains after Beryl, we allocated $2 billion for patching island-wide. So we have allocated $1.5 billion. Note as well that out of that $5, we have already spent, because we have cleared almost all the roads. There are only 15 roads that are still blocked. And of that 15, some are blocked because, as you mentioned, landslides and slippages and waterlogged, which we just wouldn't be able to address those. So we have already spent in clearing that. As I speak today, all the roads you can drive on. There might still be some bush on the side of the road, but that's what the National Cleanup Program is designed to do, and that's why we'll work in coordination with the NWA and the JPS and NWC to make sure that we're not interfering with the civil works and the road furniture and the critical works that are along those roads. And that's the coordination of the National Cleanup Program. So I put the MPs at ease. You will have your roads attended to, but from a procurement and contracting perspective, we want to get those 16 constituencies off very quickly, and then we'll be able to address the others shortly. So I would say that by late January, early February, we can start to patch, which would ordinarily be about when you would be able to spend that $10 million anyway. The overall coordination of the National Cleanup Program is the NSWMA. Yeah. Oh, the 10 million, right. So the usual. So the bulky waste is NSWMA, the cleanup and the management of the drain cleaning and so forth, vector control. That's NWA working with your Ministry of Health. So remember now, if you need to do vector control, contact your local Ministry of Health personnel to assist you either with baiting for rats or treating water or any of those activities that you would normally do in terms of ensuring that any standing water is not an environmental threat.
Member from St. Andrews Southwestern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have 3 quick questions. The first one is really a very simple one. Prime Minister, you mentioned an allocation to councillors, which seemed a little bit minuscule. I suspect that they will be hearing more about a program for the councillors. That's one. It's 3. I don't know if you just want to take the 3. Okay. So just to make sure that as a former councillor, I'm not here and not paying attention to that. So that's one. The second one has to be, Prime Minister, you spoke about government having discussions with the SDC and so on, and giving instructions for the inclusion of the members of parliament and their role. The question, Minister, Prime Minister, is whether or not those recommendations are going to be in writing and clear, and whether or not that similar approach cannot be used for the distribution of relief as it relates wider than just this in this post-Melissa recovery and all of what we're doing. Because it isn't happening now. It isn't. That's 2. Remember I said 3? Right. So no, the third one, I mean, Prime Minister, it's just very simply, I would imagine that government has been having discussions with external sources about debris management based on what you have said is the volume of debris that Melissa has left with us. Are you ready to update us, or are we to expect any more detailed update further on.
As it relates to the allocation for councillors, the revenue impact has also negatively affected local government revenues right across the island. So what we have done here is in consideration of the fallout generally for local government. I'll leave that burden on the Minister of Local Government when he comes to speak to see what other allocations he can make from his already dwindling resources. But if it can be topped up, I'm certain the Minister will do that. As it relates to the instructions, we will make the effort to put them in writing so that the officers are aware that the members of Parliament have been prescribed specific roles in supporting the National Cleanup Program. And then your third question is about debris management, right? So yes, we are actually in touch with other entities. And you would know that we have brought in, I asked the UN Secretary General for support in the management of disaster, the logistics of management, and he kindly sent a team in addition to sending a Jamaican, you might know him, Ronald Jackson, who is an international expert in this. And so this is part of the conversation going on about how to manage this debris. What we have done here is from our side, meaning from the executive side, is the financial allocation. And how can we multiply the allocation? So meaning that instead of just paying trucks to remove the garbage, how can we get the people who are removing the garbage understanding about debris, introduce recycling and separation and these other things. So whatever expenditure we're doing, yes, it's about relief from having the garbage, but it is also about making the community stronger. That yes, you see this garbage, but plastics can be recycled, metals can be reused, and we want to get that kind of notion into the community. But we also want to take advantage of this period to rebuild community spirit, to get people to come out and clean their own communities. So that's the idea behind the expenditure. So it's not merely an expenditure, it's about multiplying the value of what we get from the expenditure.
Member from Portland Eastern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister. Prime Minister, I just crave your indulgence because I don't want to sound repetitive. I had a conversation with the Minister of Works, if I'm saying that, yes, in terms of preserving roads at this time. So if we don't have exceptions to the rules in everything that you've outlined, we may find ourselves in a situation where we're spending more to preserve roads that we just previously spent a lot of money to repave and construct. For instance, I can think of one road in Bellevue that's in Fellowship, Portland. The top of it was done, millions of dollars spent, and the bottom of it. In the middle of it, there was no works done. So what you have is the road actually deteriorating, the unimproved area going into the area that was improved and between the road and the drain. The conversation that I spoke about is the practicality of you'd have to spend money to even dump the spaces so that it doesn't actually disintegrate further and start to destroy the other road, the new road. So my question then is, will there be an exception to the rules where it is identified? Because I know you outline the role of the MP, but if we are on the ground and we're seeing particular things to preserve the status quo while we await the parishes that are affected, we may find ourselves with a higher bill. And so before the next part of it is certainly the parishes that are situated similar to mine that I would have heard my friend speak about. The drain cleaning exercise is also one of road preservation, when the debushing part of it and the drain, you have drains, gutters that are like drains on those expensive roads. If they are not, if the debushing and the drain cleaning isn't working in tandem, what you're going to have is that the road itself is then destroyed. And so there are situations where, notwithstanding what's happening with NWA, and I heard it's practical, but the preservation is going to be almost as if we're going to find ourselves with a new problem and a more expensive bill. And so there was a complaint because in my constituency, I've had to take the decision to simply get marl and shingle, that I'm now learning that there's a different quality, and NWA is telling me you need to stop because the quality of the marl is not good. No, I'm just bringing that out to say that the practical solution, which rightly the minister would have advised me, is to, if you can stop the gap, you're going to have to do that. But how long can I afford to do that in a private capacity while we wait? And so I just needed to consider that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just listening to the Member of Parliament, I can see his passion and the genuine desire of wanting to help. And just reflecting that you know, when I became a Member of Parliament, I may have taken the same posture. But I'm sure that your senior colleagues over there, as I read their faces, would be saying, he will learn, he will learn, he will learn, he will learn. But remember, when we sit here and make the rules, we are not intent on breaking them. But when exceptional circumstances are brought to our attention, we will have to address them. The provisions made to members of Parliament, and let me say this, and I have to be the one to say it because you're going to face your constituents who will tell you, the Prime Minister allocate $5 million to you, to your constituency. Fix all the roads. The funds that are allocated to members of Parliament are not meant to replace the functioning ministries, departments, and agencies who have the budgets to actually deliver the service. The allocations that are given to members of Parliament are there for them to be able to respond to urgent, critical welfare and health and other critical social needs and some infrastructure needs. But the Member of Parliament is not the executive director of the NWA or the managing director of the NWA. He's not the supervisor of works. I have to say that and say it clearly. Now, I know some of us